this is Africa.
I represent South Africa, put it on the map.
Hello friends and welcome back to ReddX, your source for the freshest daily Reddit content anywhere on the internet. Promise, swearsies, it's just a fact. It might even be science. Just go ahead and look it up. Today, obviously you can tell by the title, we are jumping right back into r/NeckbeardStories with the conclusion, the final 2 posts regarding the Managerbeard saga. I do have another Managerbeard video somewhere on the channel, probably not that hard to find it, and I got a lovely DM on Reddit and also a YouTube comment that said, hey, the last part is up, when are you going to read it? Well, it seems to have slipped my mind. My computer took a poop, lost all my bookmarks. There's a lot of reasons that I didn't read it up until now. But thanks to those gentle reminders, I am back and we are going to do the thing. So I've got 2 stories written by user TinderGuy11, and that should be a wrap to the Managerbeard saga, which, you know, is kind of sad to see it go, but also good riddance. So without any further delay, let's go ahead and jump right into these stories. He-Man, a Managerbeard spin-off tale. Because we always got to warm up before the big game, you know what I'm talking about? So, I know some of you have been anxiously awaiting the exciting conclusion of the Managerbeard saga, but as they say, good things are worth waiting for. Hey, me and OP are on the same page. And as we are living in a world of remakes and cinematic universes, I thought I should start one of my very own and bring you this spin-off episode about a fellow we shall call He-Man. The Managerbeard cinematic universe? That sounds horrifying. If you've not read the original 2 Managerbeard stories, I put the links below. And also a link to the video in the description if you haven't seen it. To bring you a full introduction, we'll have to go a few months back, before the arrival of Managerbeard, and during my time as a waiter. He-Man had been one of the original waitering staff, or so I had heard, having not actually had the pleasure myself of meeting this character quite yet, but I had heard the legends that surrounded him. Now, I'll be completely honest, when the other waiters told me about He-Man, I thought they were making him up. Everything just sounded so outlandish, it sounded like they were describing a cartoon. No person like this could actually exist in real life, right? Oh, how I miss the days when my mind was still so young and innocent. I actually managed to work there for several months without ever having encountered this creature. But as life tends to turn out, all good things must eventually come to an end, and so was the case of my life without having met He-Man. He was a gangly-looking neckbeard, about 2 meters tall, facial hair that made him look much older than he actually was. Thinking about it, he was kind of like the living embodiment of the BFG. Was that Big Friendly Giant, I guess? If the Big Friendly Giant talked really slow and really should have been a writer for really bad Hollywood movies. The night I met him had been pretty quiet, we'd closed early, and I had been looking forward to an early night in bed. But fate, allied by He-Man, had different plans for me, and after Cash Up I found myself cornered, listening to He-Man's life story, which I am going to repeat to you now. But before I do, I need to reiterate that I have changed nothing about this story. I did not add any details, nor am I overselling it. This is the real story he told me the night that we met. The tale started with him winning the lottery. Obviously, as this was back in 2006, I can't actually remember the amount that he had claimed, but this was allegedly no small win. The story continued, claiming that he had used that lottery money to purchase himself a Ferrari and a 20-carat diamond. And that 20-carat diamond he had apparently taped into the Ferrari's exhaust pipe. Isn't that 20-carat diamond like $2 million and you just throw it in a fucking exhaust pipe? Not the brightest move, even if he's not lying. There's no wonder why that money is now gone. Not ridiculous enough yet? Well, hold on to your seats. But wait, there's more. Shortly after this purchase, crises had struck He-Man's life when his girlfriend, Tori Spelling, yes, yes, the actress from Beverly Hills 90210, stole his beloved car and took off with it to Europe, all the while with the diamond still taped to the inside of the exhaust. Tori Spelling does seem like the kind of woman who would do something like that, though. And no, we're not done yet. On a personal mission, now to reclaim what was stolen from him, He-Man purchased another sports car and took off to Europe himself to track down his thieving girlfriend. And tracked her down he did, right onto the set of Beverly Hills 90210, which is being filmed in Europe, I guess, where they immediately offered him a part on the show that he was unfortunately forced to turn down, as he already had a job at a restaurant where we worked. I can't be an actor, I'm sorry. I have a much shittier job somewhere else. Now, you know the face that you're currently making after having that read? Pure joy? Triple that reaction, and then imagine 18-year-old me staring back at this guy, my mouth gaping open with the realization that I had just spent almost 20 minutes of my life listening to that. Yes, the version that you just read was mercifully vastly summarized. Cut forward a few months, past the events of Managerbeard Part 2, to a particular Monday, and the actual story. I mentioned in my previous chapter that on very rare occasions, Managerbeard had granted Ben and I passes to actually speaking to Dawn. This night was one of those rare occasions, and having just finished a staff meeting, the three of us stood by the head of the bar making the usual insignificant chit-chat. During the course of exchanging these pleasantries, the corner of my eye caught a character creeping, slowly, in our direction. A character that needs no introduction for this chapter. Ben had recently had his own sit-down with the He-Man, so he knew exactly what I meant when I spoke the words, "Oh shit, here comes He-Man. No one say anything about anything." He-Man rested his arms down on the bar and greeted us with a tired expression, looking something like a dog that had miraculously survived its own euthanasia. We greeted him back, all of us being careful not to follow the words hi or hello with anything that he could possibly mistake for a conversation starter. We all just stood there, in silence. Ben and I were feeling almost too afraid to breathe. But then the silence was broken with He-Man saying the following sentence.
"It's cold in Russia."
Ben and I both nodded in agreement, both of us still being careful not to respond to him. And then the lady in our little circle broke and asked, "Why do you say that?" Ben and I shot Dawn razor-sharp glances, our expressions asking, "What did you do?" But alas, the damage was done, and He-Man had been given the gap that he had been waiting for. Like earlier, I've neither changed nor added anything to this story I'm about to repeat, so sit back and enjoy your flight.
"Oh, I just came from there."
He-Man answered Dawn's stupid question.
"You see, my girlfriend landed a job in Russia, and I had to move there this weekend."
I should pause the story to point out that this girlfriend was at least real, as I'd met her in real life, but let's just say that his standards must have dropped exponentially if Tori Spelling had been his girlfriend prior to her. Sorry, I digress.
"I drove her to the airport, but she'd been late for the flight, and the airport staff said there was nothing they could do for her, and she'd have to take a later flight. But I just could not allow this, and I demanded that there must be some way they could still get her onto that flight."
Ben and I stared back at him with blank expressions. Dawn still looked mildly interested, proving that she had, in fact, never sat through the lottery tale before. He-Man continued,
"The ticket lady looked at me and said, 'Sir, the only way you're getting on that plane is if you get on with her.' And so, I had no other choice but to join her on her flight. There was only one seat still available, which was in first class, so they seated me there for the flight, where I got to drink anything I wanted for absolutely free. And then, as we arrived in Russia, I looked out the window and saw that it was snowing."
He paused for a moment, as if building up dramatic effect for his final sentence in this ridiculous story.
"And that is how I know it's cold in Russia."
I breathed a sigh of relief, as it seemed the story was mercifully over, and then responded with the same amount of enthusiasm that I manage at the weddings of brides that I don't like. "Wow, that's nice." "And that's why you missed the staff meeting?" Dawn added. I shot her a sharp stare again. Her relationship with Managerbeard was starting to make more sense by the second.
Yeah, I just came back from the airport.
He-Man responded to her, looking pleased with himself and seeming satisfied that we actually bought his ludicrous story. We continued standing there in silence until I came up with the oh-so-subtle excuse that I had to leave to go hang my laundry up before that Russian snowstorm hits us here. Ben snuck away with me, and we abandoned Dawn alone with He-Man, hopeful for her to either hear the lottery story or for Managerbeard to see He-Man chatting to his wife and just kill him. I would have been satisfied with either outcome. And that brings us to the end of the tale of He-Man. And yes, I will not stall any longer, so the next story I will share, in fact, will be the awaited final chapter in the Managerbeard saga. Until then, take very good care of yourselves. I still don't completely understand why he's called He-Man. Is He-Man stupid or something like that? It's a bit out of my time period, so I'm sure somebody will let me know in the comments. I kept assuming that he was like a rippling muscly guy, but in the description he's just like a 6-foot-tall beanpole, basically. So the name doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but I've definitely met some people like this that just lie through their teeth in order to impress people around them in any way possible. There was specifically one guy that I remember in the Navy. I remember his name, but I'm not going to say it. And he just thought he was the coolest because he'd go up and like lie to everybody and we'd all just kind of smile and nod, pretend we believed his story. And then as soon as he walked away, everybody's like, oh my God, what a moron. That story was so full of it. We used to have like this little game before he got shipped to a different duty station where we would try to make him one-up himself, like ask leading questions. It was definitely some quality fun for a bunch of drunken Navy jackasses, as we were back in our younger days. Good times though, good times. Anyways, I'm glad we got to experience a bit of He-Man. Honestly, I'm thinking the cinematic universe sounds more and more like a better idea. There's probably a ton of interesting characters. We can get a little more of Dawn's backstory and stuff like that, but you know, this story's from half a year ago, so I don't think that it will ever happen, but you know, send user TinderGuy11 a message and maybe ask him about it if you're interested. I got a whole lot of other stuff that I need to be covering on this channel, but if I see it, I'll bookmark them again, and if I see it, then I will read it. Or hopefully somebody will let me know. But anyways, let's get into that long-awaited final entry in the Managerbeard saga right now. The Fall of Managerbeard. That was so sad. And so, dear readers, we have come to the finale in the epic saga of everyone's favorite neck-bearded manager who, just like Frodo before him, journeyed through the wastelands, climbed the mountains, reached the final steps, just to say, this wasn't really worth my time, and threw it all away with one single act of stupidity. Links to the first two parts and the He-Man spinoff at the bottom. So, like all stories in the trilogy, it starts with me behind the bar. Justin and his brother were bartending with me that night, with He-Man and Dawn making up part of the waiting staff. There were other waiters on duty too, but I don't recall who. They didn't play any notable part in the events that unfolded. But of course, this would not be a Managerbeard story if we forgot to mention our hero, the man keeping us all safe, the almighty manager that night who was, of course, Managerbeard. I know, duh. It had been an average night. Not quiet, but not too busy either. The shop, in a shocking turn of events, actually had food to sell that night. Trust me, that's gonna be my next story. So the customer complaints had been fairly limited, but that was all about to change with the entry of a new table. A table that just so happened to get Dawn as their waitress. The table of four had taken seats in the smoking section, ironically enough the exact same table that we had sat at in story 2. There were two couples, casually dressed, but fairly neat, and although not politically correct to say, but also vital to this story, they were black. I guess you could say African American, if my more sensitive readers would prefer. But doesn't this story take place in South Africa? So how can they be African Americans? Aren't they just Africans? Alright, I'm not going to get into that right now. I hadn't taken much notice of this table initially, to be honest. To me, they were just another table on an average night, and I had worked hard to get myself out of the waiting role. In part because I no longer felt like taking note of customers. But this all changed rather abruptly when Managerbeard came storming past the bar, yelling to me and the other bar staff to
Come help!
Now, I don't know if you've ever been in a situation like that, but you get a sudden rush of adrenaline which pushes you to immediately comply, very often not actually taking a moment to question exactly what it is that you're complying to. In my case, I had leaped across the bar, quite literally. I just always wanted to do that. That is awesome. And the other barman had taken the normal route, still getting to the table at the same time as me. Managerbeard and He-Man were there too. The customers were on their feet, being shoved towards the door while they were shoving back, yelling, "Racist! Racist!" The other bartenders and I had now joined the shuffle. It looked like we were players on a rugby field. More yelling, He-Man took a kick to the leg, falling to the floor dramatically. He would later claim that
he had irreversible damage done to his spine in this incident.
Yep.
Conditions.
But ultimately, we did get the customers out the door and gave a massive sigh of relief. He-Man was still on the floor, floundering like a fish out of water, but nobody paid any attention to him. Finally, Justin asked the question, what was that all about? Managerbeard puffed out his chest and took a deep breath in as he started recalling the devastating account of what had led to that moment.
Dawn had been their waitress and told me they wanted to speak to a manager. I got over there and they told me that Dawn was a bad waitress.
There was a long pause that seemed to drag on forever. And? I finally asked.
And what?
Managerbeard replied, looking confused. So what led to us throwing them out? I continued, so scared that I already knew what his answer was going to be.
Didn't you hear? I just told you. They called Dawn a bad waitress.
Managerbeard snapped. Another long silence ensued. Before Justin turned around and started walking back towards the bar, his brother followed. I was still staring at Managerbeard, my mouth hanging on the floor, before finally turning around and slowly joining them. This was not going to end well. Cut forward about a week later. We'd not spoken much about the incident. I think we were all still in a state of shock. Nothing had come of the incident either, and I started thinking that maybe we had dodged a bullet. This was all about to change when I received a phone call that I had to come in immediately. Honestly, I didn't even make the connection. Justin and his brother were standing by the bar when I arrived, and Justin asked if I knew what was going on. I shrugged, stating that I didn't have the faintest idea. The general manager appeared from the office and called us all in. We entered, seeing Managerbeard there too. We eyed him with contempt, none of us bothering to greet him. And then the general manager dropped a newspaper down on the table for us all to see. Now, to be fair, it was The Sun, so not exactly any kind of publication to be proud of, but still a rather popular one nonetheless. On the front page, a photo of the people we had thrown out posing in front of the restaurant, and a headline stating something to the extent of "Massive Racist Incident at Stellenbosch." I don't know why I was concealing the name, everybody else has figured it out by now. So the article retold the story, basically exactly how it had happened, but of course it had turned it into a race thing, and we were not looking good. Now, I don't often come up for Managerbeard, but even I knew that wasn't true. This had nothing to do with race. The idiot was just freaking crazy, and I'm 99.99999% certain that if the patrons had been white, the night's events would have played out exactly the same. But unfortunately, they hadn't been, and this is Africa. Now, rightfully so, the general manager was pretty livid about what had transpired here. However, his anger seemed to be very much misdirected. For even though Managerbeard and Dawn had been the only ones named personally in this article, somehow the general manager had gotten the idea into his tiny head that we had somehow been responsible. He argued that we had
Escalated the situation by jumping in
and was now threatening to
fire us.
We all looked at Managerbeard, who thus far had not spoken a single word, expecting him to speak up and defend us, but he just continued to sit there in stone-cold silence. Justin was the first to speak up, stating that he wasn't going to stay here and listen to this, and started to leave. His exit was blocked by the general manager, grabbing his arm and pulling him back into the office. "Do not put your hands on me," Justin said in a very threatening tone. Wow, there are just lawsuits breaking out all over this place, isn't there? I said, almost breaking out into laughter.
You think I won't hit you?
The general manager threatened back. Oh no, I want you to, Justin said, pointing to the security camera. Please, go ahead and hit me, so I can say that Draw's general manager assaulted me at work. The general manager started unbuttoning his shirt.
You see this? I'm taking off my work uniform. Now I'm just a random customer, and I can hit you as much as I like.
I don't think it works that way, I said, this time being unable to contain my laughter. I'd always considered the general manager to be a moron, but now he was reaching Managerbeard levels of idiocy. The general manager apparently hadn't heard me and really had taken off his shirt. He now had Justin by his shirt collar and was pushing him up against the door. I'm not exaggerating when I say that the weight of two men pressing up against the door handle had completely bent it out of shape. The general manager now started choking Justin, causing his brother to grab the general manager by the neck and trying to pull him off. I sighed loudly before jumping into, hardly being able to believe that I was about to get involved in another shoving match at work in under a week. Also, I really didn't want to touch our shirtless manager because, gross. But what about Managerbeard? Our hero. Yes, he was still there, and he still had not said a single word. This was probably the longest he had gone without him talking since I had met him. Finally, the general manager released Justin. Sweat was running down his entire body while he was panting like a dog. Justin glared at Managerbeard, sitting in silence, and yelled out, "You coward! Are you just gonna keep sitting there? This is all your fault!" What happened next is an image that I will never get out of my head until the day that I die. As Managerbeard started sobbing, I mean real tears running down his cheeks as he said,
"Nobody likes me."
It got me so good. I could not believe what my eyes were witnessing. A grown man, the most arrogant and obnoxious man I had ever met, now sitting on a chair, sobbing about the fact that
nobody likes him.
I felt so sorry for him, and I really don't mean that sarcastically. This pathetic creature that I had spent months detesting, that everyone detested, had finally broken and showed at least a shred of humanity. I actually wanted to just give the idiot a hug. I mean, how do you stay mad after seeing that? I'd mentioned in story 2 that General Manager might have been Managerbeard's only friend, and now, seeing that his friend needed him, he told us we could all go home. It was a surprisingly pure moment in what had been an otherwise very unpleasant experience. I later emailed the newspaper myself, explaining my point of view about the incident, and stating that although Managerbeard had handled the experience awfully, race had honestly not been any kind of factor. The journalist had actually replied to me, very professionally for such an awful paper, and thanked me for my statement, saying that she was looking into writing a follow-up story, which, to the best of my knowledge, never happened. It's just one of those replies that they give, and that the original article had stated that the victims were planning on taking legal steps against the restaurant, but if that did actually ever take place, I carry no knowledge of it. As for the repercussions to Managerbeard and everyone else involved, in true Dross fashion, there had been none, and the incident was just never mentioned again. Sweep it under the rug. Managerbeard's rare moment of humanity that we had witnessed in the office had apparently been locked away in a safe, because the next day he had turned back into the colossal prick that we all knew, reminding me instantly just why I hated him. Although the incident had not ended his career at this restaurant, he was ultimately fired when security cameras caught him, Don, and some other employees opening the shop at 4 a.m. and having a little private party with the bar stock. I heard that he and Don actually did get married eventually, but the marriage didn't last, and I have no idea what happened to either of them after the divorce. And so ends the harrowing tale of Managerbeard. So wherever he is today, or if he's maybe even reading this, I implore to him, please never go back into managing. Oh. Well, it seems like everything turned out okay. I wish I had a big leather-bound book on my lap that I could just close and look up meaningfully at the camera. Wait, there's no camera. We don't use face cam. Jeez. But honestly, it does seem like everything fell into its right place, you know? Apparently in Africa, racism is a higher crime than murder or something. I do vaguely remember that being mentioned in the original Managerbeard stories. So I'm super glad that nobody went to jail, because that's just a horrible punishment that nobody deserves. And honestly, how do you even prove racism, you know? Like OP said, Managerbeard probably would have kicked the people out if they were white. It's just that, you know, he's insane about his wife, who he later married and divorced. And good for Dawn finally getting away from him. Jesus. I didn't feel bad for Managerbeard at any point in this story. Even the point where he's crying and he's like, nobody likes me. It's like, yeah, because you're a fucking prick. You brought it on yourself. Like, it's like somebody just punching themselves in the face until they break their nose, and then they're like, everybody, my nose is broken. Be sad about it. It's like, dude, you did this. I feel nothing. You did this. The one thread of the story that I guess is left loose is Justin being completely assaulted by the general manager. Didn't file a lawsuit or anything, but hell yeah, dude, if you choke me, I'm getting like a severance, a whole retirement package. Like, you have to pay the price. Not because I can't handle being choked for a couple of minutes, but mostly because I want your stuff. I dared you to choke me, and you did, but now I get the last laugh. Although maybe Justin did file a lawsuit or something, and it just got swept under the rug like everything else seems to do here. What a terrifying place to work. I mean, I guess a job's a job, but oof, some jobs are definitely harder than others. And as for you, friends, I have a very, very special job for you today. It is absolutely critical that you meet the deadline. So by tomorrow, I'm going to need you to like, comment, and or subscribe to this video, and possibly even share it on your social medias. I know it's a big task, but our numbers are up and we want to keep them going up, and you'll all get a bonus at the end of the year. We've also got links in the description to Twitter, Discord, Patreon, PayPal, Facebook, all the things. And of course, I would be remiss not to thank my gorgeous, wonderful, generous patrons. We've got Lady Nix, Crimson Albedo, Dot Nathan, Robert Waits, Just Austin, Pope Squid, Rebecca H, Cider Drinker, Tato Ferret, and The Last Shinobi. God, that's so exciting. Our Patreon numbers are going back up. We had a big hit after Christmas, but I'm glad people are getting back on the horse. If you can support monetarily, obviously that's massively appreciated. Thank you guys so much. And if you can't, well, that's fine. No pressure. I just appreciate you hanging out with me today, and I hope that you'll come back and hang out with me again tomorrow. In order to do so, you need to keep yourself safe out there, so wash your hands as much as possible. It's very important. But also important is to take some time out and do something that you personally, honestly enjoy. Something just for yourself, because you are loved, you are worthy, and you definitely, definitely deserve it. I'll see you in the next one, friends. And until then, bye-bye.